Namaste, dear friends, and a very warm welcome again to the second session of the 26th day of the Global Festival of Yoga. We are in our second edition and coming to the close almost. This year's festival is focusing on the themes of healing, wellness, and wisdom. We thought that this would be very important to address the needs of this present moment that we are all living through, very historical times. And the important thing is to accept the challenges that are in front of us and live through it in a manner that will allow us to come out of this experience joyfully and in the wellness and fullness of our own beings. So, today we have a session on overcoming the Buddhist view and practice on overcoming fear. And we have two very learned and esteemed scholars, practitioners with us. I'd like to invite Reverend Chuck Ngodup Sharing Burkhar to please come on screen. We also have with us Reverend Lama Zoe DeBray. I'd like you also to kindly come on screen. Thank you very much for gracing us on this occasion. We've looked at many perspectives on healing, etc., in this particular edition of the Global Festival. But it's very nice to include also the Buddhist understanding on this whole process of healing and self recovery. So I'd like to just introduce our two esteemed speakers before allowing them to take the session forward. So we have Reverend Chag Ngodup Shering Burkhar, who was born in 1953 to a nomadic family near Mount Kailash in western Tibet. In 1959, he escaped to Nepal with his parents and brother, and from there went to Dharamsala, India in 1967. After his basic education in Buddhist teachings and English language, he has served as translator to His Holiness the 16th Gyalwang Karmapa and other prominent Tibetan Buddhist lineage gurus for more than 45 years. He has traveled all over the world as a translator, as well as participated in many dialogues and discussions on Buddhist teachings and practice. And introducing Reverend Lama Jacqueline Zoe DeBray. She's a writer, counselor, professor of contemplative studies. For many years, since the last 25 years or so, she has participated in the traditional Tibetan 3-year retreat. That's about 25 years back. And since then, she has spent her time praying and meditating in solitary retreat. For a few years, she was a director of KTTG, a Tibetan Buddhist organization in Crestone in Colorado. So, with these few words, I'm sure that there's a lot more to say about both of you, but it gives us great pleasure to welcome you in our midst. And we're also grateful to GPIW for coordinating this particular session for us. Both of them are regular speakers and resource persons for a lot of the interfaith dialogues and wellness activities that the GPIW conducts all over the world. So, for these few words, I'd like to invite Ngodup Shering Burkarji to please do the invocation. And then Reverend Lama Zoe ji will do the first part of her sharing. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Namaste, Tashidelik, and auspicious greetings to all of you. So in the spirit of health, well-being, and wisdom, I want to first share with you two very important verses of prayers or supplication. And these are very, very famous, well-known in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And the first verse is, it appears in the Samantabhadra's aspiration. Samantabhadra in Tibetan Kunduzangbo, or all goodness. It is also known as aspiration, noble aspiration for excellent conduct. And excuse me, there are few translations of it I saw, but sometimes they're made very poetic and it's a little bit difficult to understand. So I try to make a sort of easier translation. And the other verses by the great Indian Buddhist master Bodhisattva, and also actually is included as one of the 84 Mahasiddhas of India, and Shanti Deva. And Shanti Deva, Shivala in Tibetan, peace, divine peace, or divinity of peace, Shanti Deva, incredibly famous, great scholar. And one of his most well-known work is the way of the life of the Bodhisattvas, or Bodhicharya Avatara. Sorry, my Sanskrit pronunciation not so good. And anyway, it's from that. And this 4-line, His Holiness Dalai Lama, he says he repeats it every day like hundreds of times for the benefit of beings and for training of the mind with compassion. So I will first read the translation and then sort of chant it in Tibetan. And the melody is whatever comes up. So it's not like a standard, any melody, whatever comes up. If you tell me to repeat the melody again, I wouldn't be able to do it. So the first one is, as limitless as space is, likewise countless are sentient beings. As widespread as their karma and mental afflictions, may my aspirations for their well-being and benefit be equally far-reaching. So that's the first one. And the second one, I might as well do the translation first of the both. So second one by Lord Shanti Deva. As long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of sentient beings. So now, with the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, great lineage masters, prominent masters like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and His Holiness Karmapa, invoking the blessings so that your incredible endeavor, the work, may proceed and spread like the brilliant rays of the sun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ngodup ji, for that profound invocation. I would now like to invite Reverend Lama Zoe DeBray to kindly share a few words. And I noticed that Dina is also there with us. Dina ji is there. Dina ji, would you like to say a few words before Lama ji speaks?
Namaste. It's good to see you both and to be with you again, Anu. And I'm very eager to hear about practices for overcoming fear, because there's so much fear on the planet right now over so many, external causes. And I think alleviating this fear is one of the most helpful things we can do right now. So how to help people overcome fear, which is often based on the mind creating these situations. So it's gaining control of the mind, not to be respond to these negative situations. So I'll just listen for this session.
Thank you very much, Tina. Lamaji, over to you.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me, okay.
Yes, yes.
So you spoke of wisdom, and I was struck by an image that came through in many teachings that I've listened to. And that is to be as a child walking into a shrine room, never having been in one of those Tibetan shrine rooms where the overwhelming plenitude of images and gold and red presents itself, but we're a child and we don't know what any of this means, but we're curious, overwhelming curious. And this is the one thing I saw missing this whole year, was this sense of looking, seeing, being like a child saying, what is going on in the world? What's happening? It is within us, this innate childlike curiosity that doesn't judge, that is almost, if we're adults now, is almost like being a Martian coming to this earth and looking at this time and the way people are behaving and what's happening and saying, Martian little child, wonder why they're doing this. Why are they acting like this? What's going on? And this is, when the background of all of this happened, my teacher had just died, and we were beginning to see the first waves of flu come through the shrine room during his 49 days. And we practiced for him for 49 days. And he was the first individual I actually saw separate from his body and be pure consciousness. When these waves came through, we didn't know whether it was, and there was no COVID in the vocabulary yet, but people behaved as though a flu was coming through and put masks on and protected themselves. When I got back to where I was living, I had contracted, actually, COVID myself. But I didn't really have very many thoughts about it. It felt like a very strange flu. And I did a lot of research. I decided, again, because my main practice is looking at everything that comes up within me. And if it is something like fear, which is a very complex knot within me, in my body, it's right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's my solar plexus, actually. And it is a knot. And when I'm looking at it and trying to break through fear, I stare at it metaphorically within, over and over and over and over again, looking, just looking, not judging, not making any concepts, because fear itself is a conglomerate of concepts. In other places, we might say we're using the eye of our wisdom, the light of our wisdom, to melt the veils, the concepts, with the impetus, the energy of curiosity that just looks quietly, calmly from the center. When we are looking, there is a sense of delight, of curiosity, and observing non-judgmentally. And it's really important not to get caught up in the fear, in all of what fear is, but to look as a child, examining something in your hand. Fear, let me see it right in my hand, this place in my solar plexus. Let me look at it. What does it look like? How does it feel in my body? And I go into that. And there are some early Buddhist practices that go into the various parts of the body and investigate what makes up this complex. What are the elements, the various elements? Once we can begin to break down various elements within us, we begin to have a handle on fear. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. Fear is something that our egoic structure, the mind thinking structure of us, has been living with for centuries. There is another part of the mind, which is that just looking and being with, just being with the fear. And it has no thoughts, and it feels almost like nothing is happening. And the thinking part of the mind will say, oh, that's got to be wrong, because nothing's happening. I mean, there's an overriding sense of peace, calmness, the more one just looks without judgment at what is going on. Now, I made myself do research here because I was like a little kid. I said, wait a minute, there's something happening in the world and I don't understand it. And I'm looking at things only from my particular comfort zone. Let me pretend like I'm a Martian or a child again and look at every single perspective, particularly the ones I don't want to look at. So I made myself look at everything that I couldn't stand, every perspective. That meant I had to go underground. People had to send me links because a lot of stuff was not kept on the internet. I'm not saying right, wrong, and different. I'm saying that the more I look, the more research I gather from all perspectives, I am not afraid. I'm not particularly scared. Now, I have compromised lungs, so I shouldn't get flus. So I do protect myself. I mean, that's common sense. But in having looked so much and investigated and used the part of the mind that usually made this whole conceptual fear that resides here that I'm trying to undo, using that part of the mind constructively from the part that looks without judgment. And that part is quiet, centered, and looks as though fear were in the center of my hands and I'm examining it. I'll go back again. Be like a child in a place you've never been before and investigate, look at, and when something comes up that makes the shaking and shivering, or makes anger, or makes any of the things that take us away from reality, that is the Buddhist teaching. All of these concepts take us away from the juice of reality, what's really happening. The more we look, burn through, the closer we come to what is real. And what is real is curiosity and love and kindness, warmth, all of those things beyond concept. That's what we are. And that is how we would act towards each other. When we burn through the concepts, act like a child. I mean, almost every religion says, become like a little child again to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, that's not Buddhist, but I can't help it. That was my whole learning and teaching, was every religion in the world. So anyway, I think, haven't I said enough? I think so. I think that's all I said.
So thank you very much. And I think your insights on the fact of being able to step back and observe like a child with that degree of curiosity and not take anything for granted or being judgmental, I think would be a very valuable tool to help us deal with this emotion of fear that arises due to the unknown. So thank you very much for sharing on that. And we'll, of course, come back to you also after Reverend Ngodup ji has spoken. We'll come back to you. And as there are questions, we'll also place them before you to hear more of your experience on this journey. So Reverend Ngodup ji, over to you.
First, Arunadaji, just Ngodup. There's a Reverend, nothing like that, okay? Just, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And second is, before I forget, I want to express my greetings to Dina and to all of you, of course, to Dina. And actually, I was telling to myself, since I don't know really anything, why did I even volunteer to be on the Zoom? But I think it's some encouragement from my very good friend, Marianne and Dina. So here I find myself. I am actually very fearful of what I don't know. And I actually know very little, honestly. It's an honest admission. And then I have heard a lot from great masters, but over the years, I've forgotten most of them. And I have integrated even less. So sometimes it's like, what's the use of going blah, blah, you know? And the other thing is, communication is so difficult, especially when it concerns abstract realities. It's like the articulation of it, it's getting across the point or the message or whatever you want to call it, and have it understood. And not only understood, hopefully it has sort of sunk in and it will be of some benefit. But that in itself is a big challenge. And so sometimes they say, like, not only you know very little, but chances of getting anything across is very slim. Excuse me. Anyway, having said that, first, I want to make an aspiration. That is, may all of us be always instrumental in helping and benefiting others. May we never be the instrument of harming others. There's no right place, no right time, no right reason to be inflicting harm to each other. We are all fellow sentient beings. And so with that, since I don't know, I was nervous, and so I made all kinds of notes. And unfortunately, the notes are more on fear and the different complex aspects of fear than solution. So after having listened to Lamala and approaching it in a very crystal and practical way, I think I will let go of all this fear stuff. I mean, you know, like for instance, in a simple way, you know, fear is kind of, we can just say, oh, we all know it, you know, we all experience it. And we have even imageries of it, you know, when the word fear is spoken. But that's a very shallow thing. However, we have to remember that it's almost impossible to get inside somebody's head and what it feels like to them. Because fear is from mild anxiety to, paranoia, to psychotic fear and phobia. I mean, you name it. I was just looking at the list and associate with the mind and the body and the emotions and culture, and of course, most importantly, karma and mental affliction. The label that is associated with fear alone is like overwhelming, And so, but in order to like get a sense of what somebody is really going through in the way of fear and other mental afflictions, the only way is through simple empathy and compassion and sensitivity. The more you have of it, of them, the more you get a sense of what others are going through. And it is very important that we have a sense of what others are going through. So for instance, there are so many like aspects of fears, and I was tempted to go through some, because from the Buddhist point of view, also it is seen as fear is like, fear is symptom, fear is an outcome, fear is, the cause is something else, and so it's a result, it's a consequences. And although there are like endless, numbers of fears as I was talking about, and then in Buddhist, just there are some outlines are made. By the way, when talking about outlines, actually, number of the Buddhist teachings are presented in a quite systematic way. The outlines are very clear. There's 3 of this and 8 of this and everything, and there are the problems and there are the antidotes and which correspond. But when it comes to fear, it's like it's all over the Buddhist teaching, like the fear is all over, as the fear is all over. So anyway, but in a very sort of general way, it says that there are like 8 kinds of fear that kind of stand out. One is not getting what one needs. That is whether material resources, affection, company, company in the sense of loneliness, spiritual guidance, support, or maybe safety or good health and long life and all the things that we want. And then fear of losing this at the same time, fear of losing what we have, and the fear of getting what we don't want. It's like as if we have some choice, unfortunately, not much. Striving to get at least what we need to survive, not talking about wants. Striving to maintain what one already has, materially, mental and emotional well-being, friendship, human relation, reputation, for instance. Fear of aging, fear of ill health, fear of death. And then fear of birth and rebirth. I wasn't kind of in a way not going to mention this because it was that only applies for Buddhists or for those who believe in the reincarnation. But I am very much tempted to mention because from my little understanding, karma and the rebirth is not just a belief, not just a concept that only if you believe in it, then you are subject to it. If you don't believe in it, then you are free. So better not believe. It's not like that. So in this way, there are all these kinds of. So I was going anyway. I just won't bother you with a list of different kinds of fears that I wrote down. It's just like it was like nauseating for myself. And but anyway, in a nutshell, we can say fear, the causes of fear, and the solution of fear are all within the mind. The habitual aspect of the mind is the causes of fear and the fear experience of fear. The natural, primordial state of mind is the solution to the fear. Maybe another way of putting it is that the problem is ego clinging, ego dualistic fixation, the sense of me and mine. And if we kind of dwell on it a little bit, is that when we talk about, like the how this fear and all the problems comes with dualistic fixation, ego clinging, is that me and mine. As long as there is strong clinging of me and mine, there is hope and expectations. And hope and expectation, sort of the other side of the mirror, is fear. And so in this way, like, for instance, and this, of course, ego clinging means selfishness. It is selfish. Even though we are very righteous, when it says, like my mother, my daughter, my brother, my sister, if we look at it carefully and honestly, it has nothing to do with them almost. It has everything to do with you. Because who they are to me. What about somebody else's mother? Do you feel the same way? What about somebody else's sister, spouse, what have you? No, you don't feel the same way. Not even some things, possessions. Mine. I don't want it to lose. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to whatever, something. And I don't want other people to have it and everything. So there's all of the fears associations. So in this way, mental affliction and ego clinging, ignorance are the sources of all kinds of fear. So if I may, I would like to request for us like to take back and for a moment, allow the mind to occur as it is. I try to be specific with words. I'm saying allow the mind to occur as opposed to say, I prefer saying like, let your mind be present. And I'm just thinking like to say, let mind be present if you have to make it present. But the nature of mind is always present. So allow your mind occur for a moment. All the past fears, past memory of fears, not exist. It's not relevant. Even as memories, they are not relevant. And as far as the future causes of fear, paranoia, phobia, and so forth, future has not yet happened. Why you entertain? Only thing left is the present. And allow the mind to occur naturally. In that fear. Just to get a sense of what our natural mind is like that. Like, when you allow it naturally to occur, even if it's for one moment, in that moment is self-liberated, is Buddhist way of saying, self-liberated of fear. And then in the Buddhist teachings, there are actually all the Buddhist practices, we can say, are to address fear in that sense, because fear comes from ignorance. But generally speaking, in the Buddhist teaching, it's very important as a solution, if you, as a way of transformation. We must recognize the role of impermanence. Impermanence is a reality, is a fact. Whatever your beliefs are, not your views and perspective, impermanence is a matter of fact. it is so good. Certain things are impermanent, like problems. Maybe it is not such a good news that some good things also go away, like fleeting nature of samsara. And the other thing is interdependent nature of all things. All things are interdependent. Call it scientific, call it common sense, call it secular spirituality, if you will. All things are interdependent. What does that mean? You're not stuck with one something. You're not stuck with fear. Fear is interdependently happening. There is mobility, there is possibilities. So that is, I think, the general Buddhist point of view. The other is, from the minor point of view, the kindness and compassion. Incredibly beautiful. If there is true loving kindness, which is actually should be much more easier than other, habitual patterns of the mind, jealousy, attachment, that are not natural to the mind, that are only habitually so, actually it's to the nature of the mind. So compassion, loving kindness, empathy, when we experience moments of it, we feel comfortable. We don't feel comfortable experiencing anger, jealousy. Oh, I feel so good, I'm feeling jealousy. I feel so good, I'm so like angry. We don't say that because that's not natural to us when we feel those emotions. But when we feel peace, when we feel compassion, empathy, it's like it resonates with the potential inherent nature of mind. So when we develop the Buddhist teaching, I'm not saying I have those, of course, I want to make it very clear. Buddhist teaching said, when you have compassion, you have the feeling of gratitude. And gratitude is a very, very powerful tool for overcoming many things, fear included, and acceptance. Certain things you cannot do much about it. Better you accept it, have the space to accept. And for us, it shouldn't be actually in a way that difficult to accept. For one, in spite of all the problems we have, we are truly fortunate. I think each one of us can say that for ourselves. So therefore, we should not be so like caught up in our own thing because I'm only one compared to billions and millions. And so I should extend myself as opposed to get caught up in myself. And satisfaction. And when there is a genuine empathy or compassion, there is a gradual feeling of satisfaction. Satisfaction is like, one aspect of satisfaction is acceptance. So in this way, so on the Buddhist path, what is emphasized in dealing with fear and other habitual tendencies is that there is need for understanding and awareness of the truth of impermanence and interdependence, cultivate compassion and empathy. Just for instance, if you have a genuine loving thought, you cannot have the thought of fear in that instant. When you have a true thought or feeling of compassion, you cannot have the thought of anger simultaneously. And so what it says is things are workable if we make a point to it, attend to what is possible. So, and then another important element is meditation and wisdom. And it's very important that you are like so much focusing on these elements. And when there is compassion and wisdom, and there's meditation, there is a health, there is well-being. It's not something like you have to believe. You can experience, just like when you drink water, it quenches your thirst. And the mind is thirsting for many beautiful things, and it's within the mind. Only a matter of tapping in the beautiful treasure of the resources of the mind. So, because at the end of the day, if one needs to overcome fear, one needs to have serenity and courage. Serenity comes from simplicity, understanding impermanence, understanding interdependence. It's a matter of fact, instead of getting involved with complicated mental afflictions, all kinds of artificialities. And courage is the quality of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In fact, one of the main quality of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, fearlessness. Fearlessness is actually synonymous to altruistic heart, bodhicitta, altruistic heart. Anyone who has true compassion, I've been told this so many times, I'm convinced, even though I don't have the experience. If you have true compassion, you have whatever degree of fearlessness. Or even just like that, oh, my problem is minuscule compared to what others have, what so many have. I'm so fortunate. I wish the best for others. I'm in a good place all the time. What a blessing. When the tsunami comes, I'm away from it. When the hurricane comes, I'm away from it. When the fire is happening, I'm away from it. Should I not feel fortunate? And should I not wish well-being for others? So I don't know, maybe I should stop here and how time is, but maybe just one thought, if there's time, Arunaji?
Please, yes.
Okay, one is that I was thinking like fear itself in some ways is not bad news. You know, it's like, in a very general sense, of course, fear is also like a friend, you know, like fear of shock, you know, makes you be more careful when you're dealing with electricity, you know. Like fear of accident makes you very attentive if you're driving in some, you know, tricky roads. You know what I mean? And then most importantly, again, we can say from Buddhist point of view, but I, you know, of the opinion that rebirth and karma is relevant for all beings. You reap what you sow. It's like, that's not a Buddhist saying. I learned it when I was in Christian school, you know. And so likewise, you know, and cause and effect, scientific, I mean, common sense, what have you. So in this way, that is fear is very important in like living your life properly so that you don't have to face the consequences of your, you know, frivolous way of your living life or the harmful way of your living your life. And as for the karma and consequences, we don't have to wait for next life and everything. These days, some things are pretty immediate, you know. It's like, you know, you frown in the mirror, that's what comes back to you, you know, like, and you smile and, you know, just like before here, you know, I have like about 3.5 months granddaughter, and I was smiling and saying cute things to her, and she picks up on it. You know, she smiles back at me. I'm sure if I was making some like scary noise, I doubt she would, you know, react in the same way. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. And then there are number of other things. But one thing I'm very much tempted to share with you is this, is this is in the Buddhist teaching in general and common sense wise, is that in the Buddhist teaching, it said, you know, different, in Buddhism, we talk about different realms of devas, asuras, human realm, animals, pret, and hell beings, and so forth. The dominant suffering that is particular to human beings, in Buddhist teaching is said, is busyness. In Tibetan, tel means busy. Pong means poverty. Busyness and poverty. And the poverty mentality makes us busy. As His Holiness Karmapa put it, it's actually quite shocking. We have only one earth, beautiful Mother Earth, and its beautiful resources, stable for all of us existence, but that's the only one we have. And its resources are limited. Our greed, even one individual's greed, is unlimited. Scary. That's what's going on. Unlimited. There is no end to needs and wants. Having all the material possessions, is it a solution to poverty mentality? Is an answer to poverty mentality? No. Probably more, because what you have is not working. Still you feel empty. Still you feel behind. So, and then, so this is like poverty mentality, and then has all the branches with poverty mentality, jealousy, you know, aggression, greed, miserliness. I mean, nothing is enough, never is enough. What should you expect? Misery. And the opposite in the Buddhist teaching, it says, supreme among all wealth is contentment. Supreme among all wealth is contentment. When there is contentment, I'm so grateful, I'm so thankful, I'm appreciative of everything that I have. Things couldn't be better. I should never take anything for granted, you know, from crown of my head down to the toe of my, you know, feet. I mean, knowing what's happening in the world, especially these days. Oh. And when you have contentment, you have all its like elements, you know, with contentment, gratitude, appreciation, satisfaction, acceptance, humility. So it's like attracts like, or the English common saying, birds of same feather flock together, you know. Negativities attract all the negative mental afflictions, positive likewise. So I think that's probably, I don't know if it was helpful or not. I don't think it was anything practical.
Not
and
at all. No,
but maybe I should stop there. And if there is a little time, I want to share with you a verse or like that was written about fear, and it's actually the words of the Buddha another time.
Would you like, no, not at all. Would you like to do that now, or would you like to do that as a message at the end? How would you like to convey that?
Yeah, I can do that at the end. I think I spoke enough. Thank you so much.
Not at all. No, I just wanted to say that you started off with some very humble, honest and candid submissions, but then the words of
wisdom, is true. It is absolutely
the
true.
Words of wisdom that flowed were a proof of the profound samskaras that you've had in the satsanga of great souls. And I think, and also the conviction with which you spoke about them shows that, yeah, I guess they're leaving a certain impression in your own being. And the honesty with which you presented it, I think, is very heartwarming for our listeners, because none of this is easy. It's easy to talk about fear, it's easy what to do about them, but to actually start working it out is a whole different game altogether. So thank you very much for your words there. I'd like to invite Reverend Lama Zoe DeBray to please share some more thoughts if you have on what Lamaji has said here, on what Ngodup Ji has said, and then we'll just take a few questions that have come up.
So you want me to talk a little bit and respond?
Yes, I think that's
yeah. So I actually, when you started talking about compassion and love and loving kindness, as soon as you mentioned that once you genuinely have that feeling, there is no fear. And that's true. Once you genuinely are situated in your center, in your true mind, heart, and it's because Westerners are so much in their up here, it's here, mind. I don't know if you can see, I guess you can't, wait, I mean here, here. So it's a profound realization that is very simple. If you have empathy, as you were talking about, and if you're curious about how somebody else is feeling, what's going on with this other person, even if you can't totally understand, the heart connects and there is no fear. Love chases away all fear without even trying. I mean, it's just dispelled. So that was, you said that pretty early on. And that was, I wish I had said it myself. I wish I'd thought of it. So I think that all of the teachings are to bring us back to who we truly are in our mind, heart. And however that appeals to people, whether it's through the Buddhist teachings, which are very complex, they come from a very high place in the mind, but it's all about how to be in the world when you're in the world and not meditating. Meditation can very often be a place that is hard to jump from into the realizations in meditation are hard to bring into the world. And all of the teachings tell you about that, but the experience, if, as you say, if we can be grounded in the heart mind, no matter what, just no matter what, then we are spreading the best of ourselves to everyone. And we are dispelling unreasonable fear. And we are, at the same time, there's common sense, of course, but I really appreciate, well, I call you Ngodup, because I knew you as that. I don't know all the other titles, but I've seen you over the years. I don't even think you remember seeing me sometimes, but I saw you in Sikkim in '93, and then you disappeared. But anyway, and Dina, I've got to say, I got so nervous I forgot to thank you. I thank you so much, Dina and Marianne, for asking me here. I just completely blew it, in the beginning, but thank you so much. And I mean, that's the message, isn't it? Be grounded in your heart and there is no fear. And you can go about, because you're not going to be so afraid of whatever it is you think you're afraid of. There's no thought. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much, Ngodup. That was perfect.
Thank you for your words.
I'd like to add something, if I may. It's wonderful listening to you both. I'm glad, Ngodup, you brought up death, because I think at the bottom of everything, or beneath everything, is this fear of death. And yet we have died so many times before. I've really reflected on that. We've all died so many times. So what is this? I mean, it's almost like it's just an instinct in the body for the self-preservation of the body. But that's what we have to overcome because we have those experiences in our memory, buried somewhere. And so it's a matter of identity. If we're so identified with this personality and this body, then the fear arises. But once we lose that identity and we realize we're not the body, we're not the personality, then what is there to fear about moving on? And the other thing is, if we realize that all the conditions we've created that exist in our life, we have created in the past. So we ourselves created this, whatever we're facing. And whatever suffering comes to us, it's for the purpose of awakening. Because when the body is suffering, you detach from the body. When you have whatever suffering you're enduring helps release the attachment from that, which is the goal. And I'm glad, Lama Zoe, that you brought up love as the antidote, because the more we are filled with love, the more fear just does not arise. So it's not as if you need to do anything except allow the love that is naturally our nature, our true nature, to arise. And then what is there to fear? Suffering is there to help awaken us. Death, we've done it so many times before, and we're just moving on to fulfill the next stage in our journey. We meet our loved ones again. There's no loss. It's just these illusions that are created to keep us going in this round of samsara. So that's, thank you both for bringing up those crucial points and helping people realize that fear there's no reality to it. It's an illusion the mind creates to keep us bound here. And the more we can fill ourselves or awaken the true nature, the more fear will just dissolve of its own.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, because thank you for those beautiful words, Dina ji, because I was able to connect it to the Yoga Sutras, where they talk of Abhinivesha, this fear and insecurity of death that we have somewhere. And it is also like what Ngodup ji said, it's the raga and dvesha, the attachments and the aversions that we have that keep it going somewhere. And the ego that he says, so asmita. So it's the other way around, start with abhinivesha and then raga dvesha, and then you have asmita, or the ego sense. And it all comes up from that avidya of considering the impermanent to be permanent, the considering the non-real to be real, the non-blissful to be blissful. So when we attach ourselves on these impermanence of existence, and I would say in today's context, even the uncertainties, it's not only the impermanence, but the uncertainties that are glaring us in our faces. I think it's a time of great fear in many ways, because death is staring us all in different quarters. Because of this unknown virus, we don't know where, what, how it seems to defy every possible human planning. And so we are, as a human species, confronted with our impermanence. And it's that which evokes this fear, impact on our immune system that weakens us. So what you've shared today is extremely valuable, because I think it can help us ground ourselves, and especially with love. In one of the Upanishads, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, they say dvitiyad vai bhayam bhavati. So why do we fear? Because we think there is another. But when we love, that oneness of love, there is no experience of the other, because with that compassion and empathy, and we all experience a deep connection with us all. So thank you very much for helping us anchor or find an anchor in the midst of this VUCA world that has been the term buzzword in the last few sessions. So thank you very much for those. There are a few questions, so I'll just place them in front of you, and then we can make the announcements for tomorrow's program, come back to you for your contact details, and then your messages for our participants. So one question that Anjan Nandiji is saying, he says that fear comes from experience. Then how will it pass? Because what has caused it, it leaves a certain pattern, And then we start fearing for what, you start anticipating the next occasion that had caused that first fear. So it may help or support or avoid the cause. So how do we really work this pattern out of anticipation and...
Can I say something?
Yes, please, please.
Yeah, well, I want to respond to what Dina was talking about as death and our fear of death. That is the classic example of being fearful of anticipation of a future that hasn't happened. Now, I don't mean we haven't died before, but what we're afraid of is past experience. And we assume that our past experience is what's going to, the worst of our past experience, by the way, is going to repeat in the future. Actually, the future, every time I try to anticipate or guess what's going to happen in the future, I'm wrong. I actually make myself do this now. Okay, let's make the whole scenario exactly clear what I'm thinking about. And then 3 days from now, guess what? Not at all like what I was imagining. Same with death. We do not know how this death or anything, even the next moment, will be. We assume it will be like, I'm going to see you with your background there and everything's going to be okay. But actually, anything can happen. And if one is centered in that heart-mind place, all experience, and so that experience is fresh, right there, juicy and unanticipated, because anticipation puts a barrier between direct experience. All direct experience is actually juicy. Whether we then go to the next, but the conceptual layers of this is terrible, this is frightening, that's a conceptual layer that's taking us away from the immediate moment when direct experience is happening, including death. We die every minute without realizing it, and we are reborn as our egoic self again, just the way we do when we die, physically. We do have this physical thing in us that wants to live life. But what I'm saying is, as close and as near as we can be in direct experience, particularly from the heart, death itself is not what we're thinking it is. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Ngodup, would you like to say something? And there was also one more question. I'll just place it and then you can choose how to order your response. We've got Santosh Mishra ji who's saying that you had talked about the great saint Shanti Deva. Could you indicate what made him stand out against all other monks in Buddhist history? So it's just your reference to him and why you chose him in particular.
Yes. Firstly, Dinaji, good to see you. And thank you for your support to Marianne, who is with her very ill brother, Peter Marstrand. If you can include him in your thoughts. And thank you so much. And one thing is the anticipation, It's just like, how to say it, how confused do we want to be, Like, as if we have not enough things to deal with, like on our plate, and why do we have to anticipate, So I think it's like, shake it off, It's like there is plenty of illusion around you. Why you have to invite more? Especially if that's going to create more confusion, more fear, more, instability. Because at the end of the day, you are where you are at with your mind and attitude at any moment. And like the example of, you know, something, of course, everything is changing moment to moment, but we cling to the continuity of things as real, you know. Like we go to the stream and we think the same stream is running, the same ripples are happening. Of course not, you know, there's like, and in an instant it's different ripple than different, you know, water. So, so this like anticipation in a way of the wrong things. And as Lamala was saying, probably it may not happen at all, you know. I mean, then it's like, oh my, what did I do to myself, you know? And the other thing is also, why ruin things that are going pretty well? Like, for instance, everything is where you're at with your mind at one given moment. You're upset, you're depressed, you're something, you know, bad news and everything. You go to this beautiful garden with the stream, the flower, everything. You hardly notice anything. You hardly see anything. You don't hear the birds singing. People enjoying and laughing, they bother you. They're like making fun of you or something like that. You know? When you are, you know, you got good news, like you feel very cheered up and everything, you go for a walk, you feel like, well, you want to take off your shoes, feel grass under your feet. You want to put your feet in the water and feel, you know, the cool, and you see the notice, yeah, the birds. I mean, you know, like, what? Is it from hell to heaven? Yes, in a way, yes, you know, that's where you're at. You can be at any moment, like I oftentimes share with people, you can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And it's more than often up to you, you know. Others are not around you all the time. So if they're bad enemies, avoid them. You don't have to worry so much about them. And your closest friend, in intimate or whatever, maybe they're not there when you really need them, you know. But you are like your shadow with you all the time. So in this way, it is in your interest to, in whatever way, common sense, understanding. Meditation is also a slogan, is a repetition. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, do this, do this, do this, you know, like that. And a number of times I hear and everything like, I don't meditate because I don't belong to that religion, or I, you know, something like wisdom doesn't apply to us because we are not of that religion, or something like that. Wisdom, compassion, meditation is actually universal. Anyone who has mind can meditate. It's like meditation is like water. You don't have to have a belief to be able to drink water and have your thirst quenched. So I think just that's it for now.
No, it's wonderful.
Or the other one. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that you were like a mind reader, because I was going to, ask a question by Meena Shahji, who's saying that, about Vipassana meditation and what does that, she's done that practice for 15 years by Goenka ji, and tell us something about the practice. But you preempted that and talked about the benefits of what meditation really does. So you wanted to say something, and then I'll come in with the last important question.
Yeah, just you know, because Buddhism, of course, flourished in India and then came from India to Tibet, thanks to many great Indian Buddhist masters. There are two well-known Indian Buddhist masters, or many of them, but I just mentioned two, Guru Padmasambhava and Atisha Dipankara. You know, Atisha Dipankara was like respected by all Tibetan Buddhists, like, you know, the greatest saint. Tibetans address him in another, you know, name. It says Lord of Refuge. I mean, that's like, you know, your protector. So then Shanti Deva, even though he's not known to have been to Tibet, but Tibetan Buddhists of all traditions study the work of Shanti Deva, especially, I think it's called Bodhicharya Avatara. It's called a Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It talks about the 6 paramitas, and wisdom is the one of the key thing. And it's like an incredible thing is you never know where the hidden treasure is. Don't have assumptions about anybody else unless you really know. Maybe you're an enlightened one, then you can see for eye sort of thing. But otherwise, don't have assumptions about anybody. So what is inspiring about Shanti Deva is that at the Nalanda University, he was a monk, but he appeared to be not studying. He appeared to be not practicing. And he, in fact, he was among the 84 Mahasiddhas of India. His name is, I don't know the Sanskrit pronunciation, but Busukuva, Busuku. Busuku, I understand, means one who eats, sleeps, and, passes, whatever. Like, is only known for. And the Nalanda University, amongst all the great scholars, felt this is such an embarrassment that we need to get rid of him. And then they thought, but he hasn't done anything wrong, in terms of misconduct, except that he's lazy and just sleeping around. So how to get rid? Oh yes, there's one man. They consulted with each other. So okay, one way to get rid of him is just like, let him give a teaching. We say we have to teach turn by turn. Let him give teaching, and since he really doesn't know anything, and then he will run away out of shame. And that's when the Bodhicharya Avatara, the guide to the Bodhisattvas, will live. First, he, by memory, he like is spontaneously, it's just like read like a poetry, and then. Now maybe for us, maybe it's a little bit easier to believe, but it's so he was. So there are a lot of other things anyway. How his throne came about, because he didn't have a throne. The throne didn't have a ladder. How he got on top of it and everything. But the thing is, so when he was talking about the last chapter on wisdom, he started levitating, and started levitating more, and then he disappeared. But still, you could hear his voice. Yeah. And because wisdom, shunyata, emptiness, non-referential existence, things can occur. Freedom to occur, because when there is blockages, afflictions, and veils, you like bondage, you're stuck. But when there's no veils, nothing is blocking you. You can go through walls, and you can sit still in space. Freedom. Anyway, so like, of course, everybody like regretted, and they called him back and everything, like anyway. So, and so many Tibetan, like Tibetans, like from the different Tibetan Buddhist schools, all know, oh, Shanti Deva, Shivala. Oh. And the Dalai Lama, most of the time, and His Holiness Karmapa recently also, it's like they're teaching all the time this, like as if there's no other text to choose from. It's so compact, so beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that wonderful story, and I'm grateful to Santoshji for having noticed that important point and brought it out at the end. There's just one important question that I'd like to ask both of you. It's by our participant Shayantan Chaudhary, who's saying that, is self-compassion and detachment from ego enough? What does the meditative soul do when they see a fellow human being caught in samsara? Do they try to pull them up at the risk of getting trapped? Or do they trust in karma to believe that all that's happening is already the best and detach from the emotion evoked from that sight?
So I wanted to say just a couple of words from meditation, and I'll respond to the question from the meditative point of view. Because meditation allows one to drop concepts, thoughts, and not follow the thoughts. You train yourself so you don't run after and attach yourself, Velcro yourself to the thoughts, which is what fear is. You're Velcroed to a thought. So when you see, there's no overall rule You go to your heart. You go to the place and look at that person. Very often, it is not a question of talking to a person or convincing them in an argument. It is your very being, what you are, that influences the environment, your family, people. That gets trained. If you are a meditator, it gets trained in the meditative place that is freedom from the everyday world that comes at one, or seems to come at one. Doesn't really, but it seems to come at one nonstop. It allows one to be quiet. And it's from the quiet space where there are no words that one knows how to respond and how to respond best. So it's not a question. The questioner went from heart again to complexity. Go back to the heart. When you see someone suffering, do they need a hand? Do they need to have your hand held? Do they need, over this weekend, somebody needed to be driven to the ER, the emergency room here at the hospital. Do they need, maybe they just need a smile. You go, you have a million interactions during the day. You go to the cash register person, you have your things you're buying. And at least in the West, there's a cash register, maybe not in the East, but look at the person, be in the moment. Look at the person from your heart. That's, try to use that as the training from the heart. And you can't go wrong. You can make mistakes. Of course, we all make mistakes, but you aren't really making a mistake. You're learning. You're learning how to navigate your heart and how to be with, send it out. And to lose the consciousness of the small self, the little ego. And what Ngodup said in that moment in the beginning, when you are with another person, that little person disappears like that, magic, no longer there, ego dispelled. So meditate, pray, follow the highest. What you were saying, Ngodup, about Atisha and his cities, or those powers that he had, each of us as human beings are miraculous. You discover that when you meditate. You discover the true miracle, unbound miracle of who and what we are. And nothing in our society that I know of lifts us to that. So that's why meditation and prayer always rise, or I was lucky, I had a wonderful teacher. Rise to the highest through the heart. That, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, whatever, make them the people you bow to first thing in the morning, all throughout the day, so that you're constantly that's what they're teaching us, every single one of them, how to be here and let the other dissolve. That's reality. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ngodup ji, would you like to say a few words on that question?
Yes. Okay, so here is one of those things, easier said than done, Yes. So the Buddha has said, people are saying the Buddha become fearless. The Buddha has become awakened from all mental afflictions, kaleshas, mental afflictions like that. And kaleshas, huh? So yeah. So and then there's how is like, so what do we get out of that? What are you gonna how are you going to help me, Buddha? You know, like say, so Buddha had made it very, very clearly that is that the enlightenment the Buddha has experienced cannot be injected into anyone, us. Nor can the Buddha wipe away the suffering and the mental afflictions of beings. So neither can it be injected, nor can it be taken away. So then what? I have shown the path towards liberation as I have walked and gained it. And to kind of add a little bit to it, not exactly what the Buddha said, is like that we are our own Mara, and we are our own protector, refuge. And in fact, in the Buddhist teaching that said that, you know, you are your own protector. Because if you go by, live by the nature of your mind and all its profound, beautiful resources, compassion, wisdom, and so forth, we talked about everything, you know, then because the Buddhas and ordinary beings is that the Buddha has become enlightened and we have, you know, are stuck in samsara, but the nature is the same. The Buddha didn't start it with a different kind of mind, you know, similar, same to ours. The nature is inherent goodness. Yes, I was thinking of from the Vajrayana point of view, say in terms of dealing with fear and so forth, then talks about the pure outlook, the possibility of pure outlook, digging into your potential nature, sacred outlook. Like I'm talking about in a small way, you know, going to that garden for the walk, you know. So whether you see the world as something divine, something incredible, or something like hell doesn't have to be another place. It's up to one. So and so maybe more directly, it's not that we can immediately anybody's karma or sufferings. We might be able to, through talking, through supporting, help, if the person is around us, you know, lessen it, alleviate it, think this way, you know, give the moral support or whatever. I'm there for you, you know, like, please remember that you can call me anytime, sort of thing, you know. But basically, you cannot, you know, take away anybody's karma, you know. Like good karma and bad karma is a very, very personal thing, you know. So in this way, I think it's just like do what you can and don't get discouraged by what you cannot, because you know, we are basically ordinary beings with aspirations. Yes, we have, you know, empathy, we have to whatever degree, maybe not a lot, you know, but for me, like for instance, but basically we cannot just, you know, like either you know, get rid of everything like with a spell, or not like that, you know. You have to put the work.
Thank you very much for sharing this again, this your own experience with great simplicity and accessibility, I would say. Thank you both for this wonderful, these wonderful responses. We have two messages of gratitude I'd just like to read out to you, and then we will announce the evening's program, or rather tomorrow events. And in the meanwhile, what I'd like to request you is if you could please share your contact details on the chat box. So if you choose the, would you like to do that? Because people, I'm sure, would want to know more. So if
Where is the chat
you'd like them to
box?
reach
Is that
out
one?
to you. All right. So you can just say it aloud when we come back. But before we move on to the announcements, we have
Chat box, yeah.
yes. Before we close, we have Shefali Kongji's message. She's saying, Reverend Chuck explained the quality of compassion and empathy so well and beautifully. And now, when Reverend Lama explains her take, makes it so much more sense. Not to anticipate will itself dispel all fears and make us content in the present and do away with ego and experience more compassion. Very profound from both teachers. Thank you very much. And we've got Shilpa Valyaji who's saying that I found the teaching and practicing short of Tibetan teaching has helped me a lot to deal with fears the fear of the mind. I refuse to identify with them. With gratitude, Shibani. So all these sharings are very precious. And I'd just like to mention to our participants that all these recordings are available on indicayoga.com and Indica Yoga YouTube channel, as well as the Facebook page. So if you've missed out on any sessions, please feel free to go back to them. And all this wisdom is such that it's not a one-time listening and you suddenly have that like a magic wand, it's realized. I think these are things that we need to listen to again and again. So please feel free to benefit from all of this and share it with anyone you feel would also learn from these wise experiences. With these few words, I'd just like to introduce tomorrow's sessions, and then I'll come back to you for saying your contact details aloud as well as your messages. Kotiji? So tomorrow morning, we have two wonderful sessions. In the morning, we have one on Drupad, the most ancient music form, classical music form of Drupad, and healing by a young musician, a very talented musician, Sajjan Shankaran. He's the founder of Swar Yoga, and also by Tara Kiniji, who will be in conversation with him. We've had Tara Kiniji on our sessions last year as well. She's a consultant and trainer in education and music and the co-founder of Sunad, which is another wonderful musical group that presents different shows on Upanishads in a dance drama form through different experiential narratives, etc. In the evening, we have a practice session on exploring levels of being through asana practice by Ms. Gabby Gillison. She's the chairperson of Irish Yoga Association. Gabby is a very dear friend, and she was the president of the European Union of Yoga, which was our partner last year. And Gabby has been a long-term practitioner of yoga. She's going to share with us some of her findings, but through a practice that you're all welcome to join. Thank you. So back to you. Reverend Lama Zoe ji, would you like to start by just sharing your contact details aloud as well? So,
what am I sharing? My contact?
Yes, because I'm sure there are many people who would like to know a little more. So if you'd like to share any contact details, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Okay. My email address, I don't have a website or anything like that. I don't have Facebook. I don't do social media.
Right.
So I have an email address, and it's Z as in zebra, OEDEBRAY. It's my middle and last name. I'm known mostly by Zoe these days.
Okay.
At gmail.com. So it's Zoe DeBray at gmail.com. And would you put in the subject, let's see, the yoga conference, something like that. So I know not to eliminate, that I know you're trying to contact me and you're not a scam. Do you know what I mean? Like I get a lot of, for some reason these days, I'm getting a lot of false things. So put something in the title, maybe your talk or anything. And so I know it's you, and I'm glad to respond. I would love to hear from you. I'm curious. I'm very curious as to who's listening. So, and I thank you. Yeah, really. So thank you so much. And I'm actually puzzled that I was even asked to do this, but thank you so much. And it's been a joy to listen to you, Ngodup, and see you probably in more concentrated form than I ever did in life so far up to this minute. And for you, Anuradha, thank you so much. Your beautiful, shiny, joyful face. Thank you. And Dina, thank you. I loved seeing you tune on too. Okay, thank you very much. It's been a joy.
Thank you very much for your loving gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you.
And over to Ngodup ji, would you like to please share your contact details and then a message for our participants?
So the contact as well as message, right? Is it one after the other, or is that later?
One after the other.
Yes. Okay, so the contact is very similar to Lama Zoe. And email address, my first initial of my name, N, and then last name, Burkhar. Yes, you got it already there. And yes, all in small. And that's pretty much, I have like Facebook. I think my daughter has created for me, but I'm hardly ever on it. And then I do, yes, WhatsApp and messages. That's pretty much it. And as for your face and demeanor, I was tempted to say, but I thought maybe not, so I'm happy Lama Zoe mentioned it because that must be your true reflection. So in conclusion, I want to make an appeal or just a reminder is that like I think both in the Tibetan tradition and maybe ancient Indian tradition, we have this saying, maybe it's true, maybe it's still relevant to this, there's everything. One cure for all illness, one medicine or one cure for all illnesses. And so in that spirit, so I want to remind about free yourself of poverty mentality. It's not good. That is a very bad company, free, and there is no need for it. And try to cultivate contentment. And there is ample reasons why you should not be in the company of poverty mentality. And there is ample reasons, very beautiful, common sense, practical reasons that you should be in the company of contentment. And the many attributes of contentment, gratitude. There we are alive. 15-year-old has died, 5-year-old has died, 25-year-old on the way to the wedding has died. Like, what? Is there any reason I should be alive? Impermanence, uncertainty is the reality. So gratitude, like every day, and appreciation, satisfaction, acceptance, and taking nothing for granted. The world doesn't owe it to you. As these days, why the world is so unfair with me? Like, now come on, start with yourself. Like, yeah, have you been fair with yourself? Maybe not. Yeah, probably you have tricked yourself, deceived yourself, cheated yourself more than anybody else in the world. So for a minute, maybe turn it around, always accept, habit of finger pointing, like all your problems are others. And if you have any little virtue, it's just because of you, no, that's like, even common sense doesn't so as just nothing like there's a contentment. I mean, don't take anything for granted. And then, excuse me, just so I wanted to share this, it's a sutra by the Buddha, just one verse. And it says, the Buddha explains how fear is helpful in getting one let go, let go of worldly, what you call, what's the word, trappings, trappings, like clinging, what have you. The sutra taught at the request of laymen, fierce, not fear, fierce, like fierce laymen, And so I read it. I think it's quite clear, but it's very beautiful. Afraid and in awe of worldly busyness. That's our biggest problem, Afraid and in awe of material success and honors. Afraid and in awe of corrupting friends. Association is very important, right? Afraid and in awe of those who teach bad ways. Plenty of them. Afraid and in awe of desire, anger, and confusion. Afraid and in awe of the Mara, the evils, of aggregates or skandhas, the Mara of affliction, the Mara of death, and the Mara of seductive pleasure, afraid and in awe of the three rebirths, animals, pretas, and hell beings. Through such awe and fear did I come to a hermitage in terms of what you call it, letting go of the, the garbage, like putting it simply, because we carry so much garbage, and we're looking at the physical garbage, which we create enough for Earth, but our mental garbage, I mean, it's like, and I'm like trying to tell myself when like my ego is not sticking in its big ways that like, you need to take care of certain things. Your problems have nothing to do with anybody else, yourself. And you have the blessings of the tools. So better use them instead of just complaining. With that, auspicious greetings, and may there be true wisdom and compassion in everybody's heart and mind, because that is their birthright, inherent nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very profound blessings also. Thank you. Wonderful synchronicity with the messages we've been receiving since morning session now of let go poverty mentality, have gratitude, have love, be yourself. Thank you very much. I'd love to thank the team that is behind these events, because especially our technical support staff, Srinivas ji and Koti Ram Prasad ji, who are there helping us always, allowing us to stretch, to accommodate as much wisdom and healing and well-being as possible. Datta ji, Sophia ji, Hari Vadlamani ji, Vinay Chandra ji, everybody, to GPIW in particular, for facilitating the session. Thank you very much, Dina. Thank you very much, all the participants, for being around and making this all worthwhile. Namaste. Pranams.
Namaste. Pranam.
Namaste.